The morning mist clung to the forest floor like a shroud when Jake Phillips first heard the metal detector's urgent beeping. He'd been filming his treasure hunting videos for 3 years, but he'd never heard the device scream with such intensity. The digital display flashed 98, the highest reading he'd ever seen. "Folks, this is it," he whispered to his camera, excitement building in his voice. This could be the find of a lifetime. What he unearthed 2 hours later would haunt him forever. Detective Lisa Chen received the call at 6:47 a.m. The voice on the other end belonged to Officer Martinez, and his words sent a chill down her spine. "We've got human remains in Sector 7 of Pine Ridge State Forest. Adult female, estimated 20s. There's something else, a child's backpack. SpongeBob design, partially buried nearby." Chun's blood ran cold. She knew exactly which missing person. Case this might connect to. Sarah Whitmore was tending her garden when her phone rang. 10 years of silence had taught her to dread unexpected calls, but Detective Chen's voice on the other end made her drop her pruning shears. "Mrs. Whitmore, this is Detective Chen with the State Police. We need you to come to the station immediately. It's about your daughter's case." The drive to the police station felt like moving through molasses. Sarah's husband David met her in the parking lot, his face ashen. They'd been through this before: false leads, mistaken identities, cruel hoaxes. But something in Detective Chun's tone suggested this was different. "We found remains," Chun said gently once they were seated in the interview room. "A young woman, early 20s. Along with this," she placed a clear evidence bag on the table. Inside was a small backpack, faded but unmistakably the one 7-year-old Amy had insisted on carrying to the hiking trail that day. The cartoon characters were still visible, though weathered by a decade underground. Amy would be 17. "Now," Sarah whispered, "this can't be her. We believe it's connected to a different case from 12 years ago. A college student named Rebecca Torres who went missing while hiking the same trail system. But Mrs. Whitmore, finding Amy's backpack with Rebecca's remains suggests your daughter might still be alive." The memories came flooding back. August 15th, a perfect day for hiking. Amy had been so excited about the nature walk, chattering about finding butterflies and maybe seeing a deer. The Pine Ridge Trail was well marked, popular with families. They'd stopped at the overlook for photos. Amy had wandered maybe 20 feet away, collecting interesting rocks in her backpack. When they turned around, she was gone, just vanished, as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The search had lasted for weeks. Hundreds of volunteers combed the forest. Search dogs found nothing. Amy's scent trail simply ended at the overlook, as though she'd been lifted into the air. "There's something else," Detective Chen continued. The backpack contained a note, handwritten, placed inside a plastic bag to preserve it. She showed them a photograph of the note. "Amy is safe. She's where she belongs now. Don't look for her." David's hands shook as he stared at the image. Someone took her. Someone's had her all these years. Pine Ridge State Forest had a new command center bustling with investigators, search teams, and media. Sarah watched the organized chaos from their rental cabin, the same one they'd stayed in during the original search. They'd kept it all these years, unable to let go. That's when she saw him again. Ranger Tom Sullivan stood near the information board, directing volunteers just as he had 10 years ago. His hair was grayer, his uniform more worn, but his intense interest in every detail of the search hadn't changed. "Mrs. Whitmore," he approached with that same concerned expression she remembered. "I heard about the discovery. I want you to know I never stopped thinking about Amy, not a single day. Something about his phrasing made her uncomfortable. The same words he'd used a decade ago, almost verbatim. I'd like to help coordinate the search efforts, Sullivan continued. I know these woods better than anyone. I can show you exactly where Amy was last seen. Sarah noticed how he steered volunteers away from certain areas, claiming they were too dangerous or had already been thoroughly searched. The same areas he'd redirected people from during the original investigation. That evening, Sarah pulled out the old case files she'd kept. Photos, witness statements, search grid maps. She spread them across the cabin's dining table, looking for patterns she might have missed. Ranger Sullivan appeared in almost every photo from the original search, always in the background, always watching. In one image, he was standing unusually, close to a search dog that had been trying to follow a scent trail, the same trail that mysteriously went cold. David joined her at the table. You think he's involved? I think he's been too helpful, too interested, too ... She struggled for the word, possessive of information. She found Sullivan's original statement from 10 years ago. He'd been the last person to see Amy before she vanished, making his afternoon rounds just 20 minutes before they noticed she was missing. He'd described her as playing happily, but somehow he'd known exactly what she was wearing, down to the color of her shoelaces. He's steering the search teams away from the northern quadrant, Sarah said. Same as before. Claims it's dangerous terrain, but we hiked up there ourselves. It's just dense forest. The knock on the cabin door came at 9 p.m. Sarah opened it to find her brother Michael standing on the porch, travel bag in hand. I came as soon as I heard, he said, pulling her into a hug. Any news about Amy? Michael had been devastated when Amy disappeared. He'd taken leave from his job, joined every search party, posted flyers in 3 counties. The failure to find her had changed him, made him withdrawn and obsessive about security. I brought supplies, he said, gesturing to his car. Water, energy bars, first aid kits, enough for the search teams. That's thoughtful, but I also brought something else. His voice dropped. I've been researching missing children cases, similar patterns. I think I might have found something. He pulled out a laptop and showed her a map dotted with red pins. Look at this. 7 missing children in a 200-mile radius over the past 15 years, all from state forest areas, all with rangers who showed unusual interest in the cases. Sarah's pulse quickened. You think, Sullivan? I think we need to be very careful who we trust. The next morning, Sarah volunteered to run errands in town while the search teams organized. She needed distance from the intensity, time to think clearly. The local pharmacy was her first stop. The search teams needed more first aid supplies. At the checkout counter, she was surprised to see Michael ahead of her in line. He hadn't mentioned coming to town, and his cart was oddly full. Cases of protein bars, bottled water, and strangely, multiple packages of women's toiletries, planning to stock a shelter. The pharmacist joked as she rang up his purchases. Michael's laugh sounded forced. Just, being prepared. Emergency supplies. Sarah hung back, watching. Why would Michael need so many feminine hygiene products? He lived alone, had been single for years. And why hadn't he mentioned this shopping trip? When Michael spotted her, his face went through a series of expressions: surprise, guilt, then forced cheerfulness. Sarah, I was just grabbing some extra supplies. You know me, always over-preparing. She followed him to the parking lot, noting, how he hurried to pack his purchases into the back of his SUV before he could close the hatch. She glimpsed other items, new locks, rope, camping gear for what looked like an extended stay. "Are you planning to camp out during the search?" she asked. "Maybe, if it takes longer than expected." He slammed the hatch shut. "I want to be here for however long it takes." Back at the cabin, Sarah couldn't shake her unease. She found David, organizing search maps in the living room. "Have you noticed anything odd about Michael's behavior?" she asked. David looked up from his maps. "He's been asking a lot of questions about police procedures, chain of evidence, DNA analysis, search protocols. I figured he was just trying to help." "What kind of questions?" "Yesterday he wanted to know how long forensic evidence remains viable, under different conditions. Today he was asking about canine search patterns, whether the dogs would be working specific areas tomorrow." Sarah felt a chill. Why would he need to know that? "I don't know. Maybe he's just trying to understand the process. Everyone deals with stress differently." But Sarah remembered Michael's questions from the original search. He'd been unusually interested in investigative procedures then too, always asking about evidence collection, witness interviews, search time. "David," she said slowly, "Michael has been asking these same types of questions for 10 years, ever since Amy disappeared." They looked at each other as the implications sank in. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Michael's purchases, his nervous energy, the way he'd fled the pharmacy when she spotted him. At 3 a.m., she shook David awake. "I'm going to Michael's cabin. I need to know what he's hiding." "Sarah, you can't just, he's my brother. I have a right to ask questions." David insisted on coming with her.